Hi again, Year 8. So this is the second video in the making of a stellated dodecahedron. In this video we are going to be looking at how we can decorate our 4 pieces and then the monumental task of assembling it all together. So each of the pieces is going to form 3 of the sticky out spikes of your dodecahedron. So there's a few ways you can think about colouring this. Do you want your dodecahedron to have a theme? Are you going to colour all the 4 pieces in the same way? Are you going to do each of the spikes a different colour? It is entirely up to you how you decorate this. However, the most important thing is we are not decorating the side with all the lines, the numbers and the writing. We are actually decorating the plain side. Furthermore, any little section that is a tab or a flap does not need decorating. It is only the isosceles triangles that need decorating. Now, like I say, I've done this many times, so I have a very particular theme that I normally go for. I don't try and colour absolutely everything because that would be time consuming. But I also know that where all these triangles form and meet at a point, that is the apex, that is the sticky out bit of part of the 3D shape. So what I normally do is some sort of pattern that will resolve itself when those sides are then stuck together. So let me just show you what I mean by this. Fortunately, I've got 2 young sons, so I have a huge selection of colouring crayons, including this one that looks rather fancy with 4 different colours. I don't think I'm going to use that. I'm also thinking about what kind of theme I might go for, so I'm starting to think maybe some purples, maybe some blues. I'm not going to go overboard with too many different colours. And hopefully, like I said, when I get into school tomorrow and raid Mr. Hopkins paint, there'll be something that complements this. If it doesn't, well, it won't really matter. So I'm probably going to use 2 different blues. I might then use some blue felt tips as well. And what I tend to do is I like to use a little bit of tone. So I'll start with a really sort of light blue around these sections. I mean, it is entirely up to you how you colour it, but you might just want this as perhaps an idea. And this has worked well in the past, so my kind of thought is, if it's worked well in the past, why suddenly change it? So I'm starting off with a real faint blue. I'm then gonna perhaps press on a little bit harder. Maybe you can start seeing it a little bit now. I'll then perhaps swap to my slightly darker blue, or is it a purple? I'm not entirely sure. And then do that even nearer to the point where it's all going to come together. And I might even then just add a few lines with a felt tip as well. People quite often just use one or the other. I often quite like to use both when I'm doing some colouring, just to give it some extra accents. So let's see, do we have a blue? Not sure whether these are going to look good, but we'll try. So just going up to the point, I'm just now going to use my felt tip. Sometimes when you do felt tips on crayons, it takes a little bit longer to dry. Okay, now what you'll see there is if when I put this together and stick it, and obviously I'm going to give it some time to dry, I kind of get this point that's a little bit darker. So it's kind of fading from white into a lighter blue into a darker blue, and I always think that looks really good. I mean, for example, if I get the model that I've already finished, although I've used paint on this, I've done it in a very similar way with each of the tips being sort of a red. And you can see I've then done some paint effects on this, and it's the paint effects that I'm going to now do in school. Okay, so I'm going to carry on doing these sections, and I'll probably ask you to pause the video here. Probably the next time this video kicks in again, I will be in school. So see you in a minute. So here we are in school. I have managed to get up to Mr. Hopkins' room and I have stolen some of his supplies. Shh, don't tell him. I'm currently in the library because I'm supervising some key worker kids, and I'm going to do some painting. So let's see what that's going to look like. So here is the paint I've stolen. I have also managed to commandeer a paintbrush and a palette. You can see, oh, I've put paper down because I'm very prepared. You can see I've already started colouring my designs in. So I've gone for the same theme throughout, and what I'm going to do now is use some paint and a wonderful flicking technique. So this might be a bit of a laugh because I'm going to try and do it one-handed. So get some blue and flick, 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 flick. Brilliant. I'm going to do it on all of them. Flick, flick, flick. Oh, it's on the table. Oh, shh, shh, don't tell anyone. I'm making a mess in the library. I won't get it on any of the books. Flick, flick, flick. Okay, obviously I'm going to leave this to dry because I don't want to be gluing it together whilst it's still wet. I need to get a bit more even coverage. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the purple. The next time you see me, I'll be back at home. See you later, folks. So, I am now back at home, and we are ready to begin the sticking process. For this, I'm just going to use a standard glue stick. I have in the past used some slightly better, perhaps craft glue. I'll flash up a little picture of what I mean on the video. It's kind of a clear glue. It's a bit more liquidy. One of the top tips though with glue is not to use too much. So whether you're using a Pritt stick or whether you're going to use some sort of liquid glue, try not to use too much. It can stick to your fingers, and then that can in turn make the model stick to you. So be a little bit sparing. So you can see I've got now my decorated pieces all sorted, and we're going to talk through how you put this together. You will want to pause this video in several stages and several steps. This will take approximately 20-25 minutes to stick together. I think the numbers go up to 33. If you kind of think about a minute per each part that you stick, that is a good little rule of thumb. If you go any quicker than that, then what can tend to happen is as you try and stick more of it together, if the other parts have not quite dried, they will start coming apart, and that can become a problem. So, how do you glue it together, you might be wondering? Well, you might have heard of painting by numbers. Well, this activity is gluing by numbers, in the fact that you need to find flap number 1. Now, for every single number that is on a flap, there is a corresponding face that it must be stuck to. So, for example, in a moment, I'm going to put glue on flap number 1. So notice I'm going to put it on the side that doesn't have the number. So that side there. And then I will stick it to face number 1. So you can see the number 1 on the tab will be on top of the number 1 in the shape. And you keep doing that 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to do that up until about flap number, let me just check, flap number 22. Okay, so just do it one in turn to flap number 22. I tell you what, I will just do flap numbers 1, 2 and 3 so you can see what I mean. So a little bit of glue on flap number 1. So you kind of get an idea of how much I'm using. Okay. Hold it in place. Okay. Now, one little strategy you can use is the 15 elephants technique. And the 15 elephants is you have to count 15 elephants whilst it dries. So 1 elephant, 2 elephant, 3 elephant, all the way up to 15 elephants. Now, for these first few pieces as well, you can actually kind of squash it and hold it together with your pincers like that. The reason being that if you've folded it and scored it well, you'll be able to then reform the shape. Okay, so I'm going to do numbers 1, 2 and 3 to begin with on camera, and then we will fast forward to, I believe I said, about number, let's not go as far as number 22. We will see when we get there. So that's 1. You can see to begin with, each of these is the long flap, which is making the pointy bit. And quite often this is where people go wrong, because they've got into a routine of what to do. I'm doing all the bits that make the spiky parts, and then they accidentally stick flap number 33 down on piece number 4. So they often stick number 33 well before they get to number 33. And the problem is if you stick number 33 down, it can be quite awkward to try and finish the model off and close what I will probably refer to as the final door. So that's number 1, that's number 2. You can see I'm really taking my time. So whilst I'm talking, I'm not rushing sticking these sections together. Obviously, if I've said it's going to take you about 25 minutes to stick together, I'm not going to want to make my video 25 minutes long. You're not going to want to hear me go on for 25 minutes. I mean, I could keep you company whilst you're doing this, but I have no intention to, I'm afraid you're right. Okay, so that is what I've ended up with, okay? That is my first section, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video there. I'm going to carry on a little bit longer, and I will jump in at a later number and I will tell you what that number is. It will be where it starts getting a little bit more interesting. So, I am now at number 7. So the last one that I have done was number 6. And the reason why I've jumped in again at number 7 is because at this point you've got 2 separate parts, each with 3 spikes, and these are the folds that kind of go back. Okay, so that's how they currently should look, kind of 3 little pyramids sat next to each other. Now, number 7 is where you start putting 2 of these pieces together, because flap number 7 is here on this section, yet place number 7 is here. So I'm going to have to put that flap into there and hold it. Okay, now this is where it's a little bit more awkward to start holding things in place. Okay, I would also suggest if during this your fingers start getting a little bit sticky, just take a little break, go and wash your hands, dry your hands. Because if your fingers get sticky, and we don't normally have the luxury of doing this in the classroom, but if your fingers get sticky, then the cardboard can stick to you. So I'm going to be sticking number 7, and then you can see number 8, and then number 9, and number 10. Okay, and that should join these 2 pieces together. I'm going to take it super slowly, and I will do this one on camera, or at least part of it. Okay, so I'm putting some glue on flap number 7. So remember, on the opposite side to the number. I'm then finding the bottom of face number 7, and I'm going to get that as joined up as I can. Really, really push the edge of the isosceles triangle right into the fold of that flap. Okay, and what I try and do is hold with my thumbs on one side and my fingers on the other side, so I can really, really hold it in place for a good 15 to 20 seconds. Take your time. Listen to some music whilst you're doing this. Talk to someone else at home. Okay, I can already feel my thumbs getting a little bit sticky. Okay, so just be really, really careful. If you do start to get a little bit sticky, go away and just wash your hands like I've suggested. Okay, so that's looking fairly secure. What you can sometimes find is as you move around and start doing the next flaps, this is where it might start peeling apart if you are rushing. Okay, so I'm going to do 8, I'm going to do 9, I'm going to do 10, and then I will be back again. I've just decided to quickly show you a little top tip. So far I've just stuck 7 and 8 down, and you might be thinking, well, how do I get the glue on flap number 9 to give it enough glue to stick down? So what I sometimes do is just ever so gently bring the flap just in front of the face that you're going to stick it to, because that just gives you a little bit more room to apply the glue, and then just again gently tuck it back under and then hold it in place. So that is my flap number 9. So I've just completed flap number 11, and this is now holding those 2 initial pieces together. Do remember, you can take a break at any time from doing this. You might decide, I'm going to let it dry a little bit longer. There's no need to rush this. Do it in several steps if you want. Now, I believe for the time being that one can go out the way. So that is going to give it a little bit of time to dry. And now we'll be doing something very similar with the other 2 pieces. So remember, I've just stuck 11 down. So I'm going to be doing 12, 13 and 14 to get the 3 pyramid shapes on that. Then I'm going to be doing, let's have a look, 15, 16, 17, which is going to then stick this to the existing piece. So don't need part number 4 just yet. So the next step is going to be 12, 13 and 14 to make the 3 pyramids. So that is 12, 13 and 14 completed. And now I should be able to join it to my existing shape. So I am now going to be sticking numbers, let's find them, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. I will show you what that looks like when I have done all of those. So the last flap that I've just stuck down was number 20. You can see it's starting to take shape. Now normally by this stage students are getting a little bit frustrated by this activity. Some of the things that can frustrate them is the flaps are starting to come undone. Now again, if you've been following my advice, you've not been rushing, that should not have been happening. I've not had one single flap that has needed gluing a second time yet. The other thing that students say to me is, I can't do it, so I need some help. My hands are too big. At which point I say, well, I'm afraid, Year 8, my hands are bigger. Okay? So I'm not sure why that is a good argument for perhaps suggesting that's why I have an easier job. It's certainly quite difficult. It's just all about patience. So I hope you've not thrown anything at your computer, or you've thrown your computer out the window by now, because we are almost there. We are up to the final section, and we are doing flaps 21 to 33. Now, this is the point where most students go wrong. They are so used to making the 3 little pyramids that they neglect to see that this final one has the number 33 on it. Okay? And that is the final thing that you will close. It's like closing this triangular door on your final design. And sticking that last flap can be very, very difficult, particularly if you've stuck this one too early. Okay? So I'm going to carry on sticking 21 through to about 30. And then we'll see me try and do the last few sections. So you can see I've got the final spike to do. Had a little bit of difficulty with flap number 27. That was the first one that came undone a little bit. That was more something I warned about earlier. Just too much glue on my fingers and the actual flap was stuck to my finger rather than the side. But once I got 27 in, 28 and 29 I almost kind of did at the same time. So we are now ready to try and finish. And this is what I mean about closing the door. If we do this nicely, it will come together right at the end quite nicely. To be honest, I think the fiddly bits are out the way, apart from the very last stick now. You should have plenty of room, because we're now just working around this section and not like right inside our stellated dodecahedron. So there's flap number 30. I will be perhaps rushing this a little bit more than I normally would. I can still feel the glue on my fingers, so perhaps should have gone and washed my hands. So that's flap number 30. Another little strategy, just as I'm thinking about it as I'm doing some of these things, I was struggling to get towards 31 a little bit, so what I've just done is I've kind of folded it back just to allow me a little bit more room to get some glue on flap 31. So I am at the last section. This is the little door that I'm going to be closing. So you can see I've just folded it back so I've got room to get glue. Another little top tip, because this is probably going to be the weakest seal on your whole shape, is don't fold these too far in. Because what you're basically going to do is hold it like that. And if they've been pushed in too far, you won't get much contact. What I often do with this kind of what I call the weakest point is I'll then kind of make it the base of my shape. So if there is a slight imperfection when I finish my model, that's normally something that it sits on so you don't notice it. So I'm just going to stick this last one down, and then I'll come back to give you some final instructions. So there we have it, Year 8. It is done. I really, really hope you have enjoyed this task. What I'd really, really like for you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is can you just take one final photo if you've done a particularly good job and you just want to share the image with me. It would be really nice to see that some of you have actually managed to create this. Have we been more successful than my Year 8s in the past? Has actually doing this from home made it easier? Has seeing the video of step-by-step instructions helped you out? But enjoy your summer, folks, and for the time being, that is me signing out. Goodbye.